This is 24 in 42. Welcome to 24 in 42 with our special guest, S.E. Lindberg, otherwise known to everyone and myself included as Seth. Pleasure to have you here, Seth.
Hey, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
I've been looking forward to this actually because I think Seth has been one of my largest encouragers in the last
Mm.
20 years. He has literally been behind every single book and project that I've worked on. He's spread the word, he's reviewed the word, multiple posts and talks everywhere. I cannot thank you enough. And
Oh,
he is a writer too, so this way I get to corner him. And here's where we learn everything about his
mm.
life in universe. So, Seth, tell us about yourself and what you write.
Right. Well, by day in training, I'm a chemist. Um, but at night, I write fantasy and horror fiction. So, yeah, I've been writing for about since 2010-ish or so. So,
Excellent.
uh, mainly amateur short stories, sword sorcery, and some related action.
Okay. And you have a very special fiction that you write, that you created yourself.
Yeah, so I the main thing that I'm inspired to write is a mixture of I guess alchemy and infused sword and sorcery. So I'm a chemist by day, so I'm excited to learn more about chemistry and so the discretion fiction, I guess, banner that I use or encompasses this world I write in, which fictionalizes the we would call it the medicinal humors. So it's dyscrasia is not a fake gland. It's actually an alchemical term meaning imbalance of blood. And so it's all the stories are involved around pretty dark blood sorcery, if you will, and all the protagonists have some tie into to being an artist.
Okay. All right. I have been lucky enough to read several of them, not all of them. But so Seth and I have not ever worked directly together other than one time we had the opportunity and I failed. We
Oh,
had the chance to be in the late Janet Morris's first
oh,
heroic, and I never
oh,
turned my story in on time, and in fact, it is still only half written.
I didn't know that.
Yes, she.
Oh.
I was in the initial invite group, and I gave her my premise, and she liked it, and I could not pull off the story. So I regret that profoundly.
Well, as you know, I've been a big fan of all the anthologies you put out. Is coming from Return of the Sword. So I've had a lifelong goal of trying to break into one of your anthologies, but I've submitted twice to you, and I was really grateful because you, in both cases, even though you didn't accept, you gave me some really great feedback on how I can improve my stories, and then I took that feedback and improved the stories and found some other markets for them.
Awesome.
And I've had the chance of doing acquisition editing once for Tales from the Magician's Skull, and I learned how hard it is to be able to give good feedback to everyone. I've been appreciative that you took the time to do that because it benefited me. So,
Well, thank you. And it is.
yeah.
It is very challenging. It wears you out almost harder than writing, more than writing.
Yep.
All right. I think our guests are tired of us jumping around, and
Yeah.
let's get to the point here. So there's a little
Okay.
timer. I'm going to start it here. We're going to start our questions. And to
Okay.
remind everyone, Seth was given 16 of the 24 in advance so that it just helps things flow a little bit faster. But he's got 8. He doesn't really know what's coming. And here we go.
Great. All right.
Number 1. What color do you write in?
What color do I write in? I guess it's typically black, though I write in dark mode on the screens, so it appears as white.
Okay.
Hmm.
I expected blood colors from you.
Oh, yeah. I admit I fantasize sometimes. I wish I had the patience to write like with a fountain pen, um, and I haven't yet. So
Okay. All right.
I might. I strive to do that.
All right. Well, tell us how you grew up. Were you a city or country kid? And wherever it was, did you have friends or family, siblings to play with, or was it just you out in the wild?
I'm a suburban kid. I grew up mostly in Brookfield, Wisconsin, in elementary school,
Awesome.
and back in the '80s, and also then after that, moved to Northern Ohio and Akron, and so also the suburbs. So no, I always had a decent number of kids to play with. Back in back in the day, the parents didn't care what we did, and often if we didn't come home at night, it's kind of strange. I mean, as a parent now, I don't know why that was okay, but it was pretty cool because we could leave in the morning and just run around and just eat dinner at some other kid's house and play kick the can at night and have a sleepover on the fly. And for some reason, that didn't really alarm anyone.
Yep.
But um, so, yeah, a lot of fond memories of playing, goofed around in the suburbs of Brookfield.
That's interesting. Did you know I'm from Wisconsin?
No, I did not.
Yep, I know Brookfield well. I grew up out in Oconomowoc.
No, really?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's one of my favorites. Sweet.
yeah. Interesting.
What the-
All right. Hey, if you could follow the yellow brick road, would you?
Oh yeah, definitely. But I was hoping you'd ask me about the Yellow Submarine because I'm a big Beatles fan.
Okay. If you could live in a yellow submarine, would you?
Yeah, I would, only because I assume it would be similar to what the Beatles experienced in their movie. And it wouldn't really be like living in a real submarine. It would be like a doorway to some magical
Right.
worlds.
This
So
giant.
yes, yes, I would be all over for the fantasy element of that.
If you've watched the first season, I wasn't actually getting the answers to that question that I wanted. Seth finally
Okay.
gave it to me, and I didn't ask
Okay.
him.
Okay.
That's funny. All right. When you're writing, what assails your ears?
Usually soundtracks. I'm especially fond of the Silent Hill soundtracks for the game series. Um,
Okay.
and I'll mispronounce the Japanese composer, so I don't want to butcher that. And there's I wrote down the lady's name too. There's able to say her name better. Let me give her proper credit. Um, but yeah, it's usually the Silent Hill soundtracks. Most of them are available online or through YouTube. I own most all of them anyway. But
Okay.
they're great and horrific and melancholic. I'm also a big fan of Hans Zimmer and I think Dan Pemberton. I think this is his name. He's almost like a protege of his or something or related. He did like the King Arthur Legend of the Sword soundtrack, which is really intense.
Okay. I know the soundtrack. I didn't know the name. All right. Did you say Pendleton?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so.
All right. I'll look it up. All right.
Yeah. So it was the I guess the Legend of the Sword or King Arthur Legend of the Sword got the Guy Ritchie film kind of got mixed reviews. It's mostly okay. The soundtrack is spectacular.
Okay.
Uh, uh, I highly recommend it. That's much more intense, so that's good for action scenes.
Yeah, I enjoy
Yeah,
soundtracks. I wonder if it's been mixed in. I put so many together now that
yeah,
YouTube channels and stuff.
yeah.
All right, here's a very, very, very personal question. Your three favorite books as a kid.
Oh yes, that was one of the prepared ones. I have them with me.
Excellent.
Um, I have a lot of books with me. I'm not sure if I'll pull them out. So in no particular order. One would be The Warlock of Firetop Mountain.
Ah,
So
all right.
this was one of the first of the fighting fantasy game books that came out in the late '70s, early '80s.
Right.
Um, this was great. So not only is it a choose your own adventure book that's like a game book, because I'm really into board games and stuff. There's it's just chock full of horror too. Like this, like from section 122 is like an example of like you're just you're a young kid, you're flipping through and there's, you just turn the page and there's like these horrific zombies staring at you, and it's
Yeah.
like it's there's just it's just full of I mean basically this is a precursor to a lot of the Warhammer stuff too, because Games Workshop came out of Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone working with Citadel, so
Okay.
the artwork is very much akin to early Warhammer, and so that was one. Um, and then there's Lloyd Alexander's the Book of Three or the Prydain Chronicles.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I mean the cover drew me in, and I think this is the first fantasy book I ever read. I read it a lot, so I've been huge fan of this series and the Cauldron Born, the Reborn, zombies, and that.
That cover is awesome on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. There's tons of other ones, but I picked the Tombs of Atuan, I guess, from Ursula Le Guin.
Okay.
This is actually like the second one of the Earthsea series. I'm a huge fan of Catacombs. Um, I guess I enjoyed this. It's a bit, I don't know if it reads as easy as some other young adult stuff, but the series is cool because it's pretty much a, you know, kid learning how to be a wizard in a school, albeit more on a native island. I think, before you have Harry Potter stuff. So it's a bit more of a serious early version of
Right.
coming of age wizardry.
Yep.
But I particularly like there's a bunch of like nameless gods in this and catacombs, and so
What
those are influential
it's
from.
been years since I read the series, but why two over one? What was in two? I don't
Yeah, I think it's more of a they had more of this catacomb element, I guess, with the
Okay.
tomb, so that it was the underground
Okay. Yep.
atmosphere.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
little precursor to your interest in life too. So that's sort of cool.
it's right. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. All right, here's a new one. Ready?
Okay,
What
yep.
was, or maybe is, your favorite cartoon, and when and where did you watch it?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. The first one that comes, I'll have to pick Pinky in the Brain.
Awesome. That's mine.
I mean, there's a lot to choose from, but I think Cripes I might have been early college at that point. I don't know, but I mean, of course, there's lab rats. I'm a scientist, and so that the you can't get funnier than them trying to take over the world, and um, so yeah.
I actually have a Pinky in the Brain shirt. If I'd been thinking, I would have wore it.
Oh, sweet.
What do you think is the best money you have ever spent on furthering your own writing career?
There's it seems similar to one of the. I think this might be one of your questions. Yeah, there's
Yep.
two things. So one was a book which I meant to bring over here, but it's back on my bookshelf by Nancy Kress. It was like a writing fiction, series. It was
Okay.
called Beginning, Middles, and Ends,
Okay.
and really easy to read, but it breaks down like from your first sentence, your paragraph, and it takes you just through all the elements of writing a story step by step in a very clear way, and that really helped me get me started. More recently, over the past say 5-ish years, there's I think it's PWA. I think it's a professional writer's aid. I should know this because I use it all the time on my pro writing aid. It's a drop in that goes everywhere from well, Scrivener can use it or Word, you can use it. It's like $300 a year. I think they raised it if you want to get some AI type of interpretation in it, but it's a drop in that works to help edit.
Okay. So like a
Uh,
module you add to any program.
yeah, it's like Grammarly on steroids, I think. I
Okay.
mean, with a lot of things to help write.
Okay.
I could go on a tangent real quick. So, I mean, since I mean, I don't have a lot of time to just sit and write. So I'm constantly composing on the fly, like
Okay.
during the day and rehearsing stuff, and I'll capture key dialogue or key things, and I won't have time to write them down and anywhere than like my phone. And I'll use like Google Keep or something just to capture elements of it.
Yep.
And then when I get time on the weekend or at night to go through that, I got to rearrange all these, Tetris pieces and a lot of times there's repeat thoughts because I'm rehearsing the same scene a lot. And they have the pro writing aid, I don't know what you call it, toolbox or whatever. They have a couple things that are really neat, like for repeated thoughts, and they call them echoes. So even keywords you
Okay.
use, which I have a ton of because of the way I've tried to capture my sentences.
Okay.
And so editing that is a fiasco myself without a tool like that. Trying to figure out, like, did I already say that sentence or and when I use these tools for capturing the repeat, structures or words, it just it finds them all over the place,
Huh.
and
Okay.
it's because the way I try to compose is um, trying to make sense of all these fragments.
Right. Have you ever dictated into your phone or a recorder?
I have not. I have not.
I
If I
ask
did, I'd
because
have to get it. What do you call it? You had to get it digitized into words at some point from the
Right. Well,
speech.
Dragon Speak's still, I think, number
Oh,
one at that. That's an awesome program.
okay.
Um, Years ago, 20 some years ago, when I'm sure they've got competitors now, but DragonSpeak was used for like medical dictation, and then
Yeah.
it turned into people that like to read newspapers but couldn't because
Mm,
of eyesight. People would just read them the newspapers and they would read to them. But the biggest one that I
mm,
know that does dictation is Kevin J. Anderson out in
mm.
California. He does all his hikes in the mountains and he dictates all of his stories, and then he puts them in the Dragon Speak and they dump it into whatever. I don't know if he uses
Oh,
Word or whatever, but yeah.
okay.
So it was an interesting idea, and I ended up buying a recorder, and I tried to do that, but then you're carrying, a phone, a recorder, other things in your pockets, and I gave up after a while. All right. So when you're writing, do you think it's helpful or more challenging if you, the writer, feel emotions strongly?
Yeah, I guess it depends how much emotions you have. I think it helps to be, um, yeah, I guess as long as you can stay focused, it helps to be more on the emotional side. I think. I guess again, there's different parts of the composing. So I think of the initial steps is trying to figure out the more of a planner or plotter. So trying to figure out
Okay.
the bigger scene structure and who might say what. Um, for me, having a heightened state of emotions is better to bring out and kind of predict what the characters might be feeling as well.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
I could imagine that that might go too far too, so like,
Yeah,
but
possibly be overwhelmed, but at the same time, if you're too
mm,
analytical, it might not, for the reader side of things, they might not embrace it. So, okay,
yeah,
good
I
point.
think sometimes again, for me to switch gears from a working the day job or whatever, I almost need to try to get emotional a little bit, like try to
Sure.
and I mean not to the point where I'm bawling or something, but it
Yeah,
to help get into the creative mood.
I would say there's probably not a whole lot of room for emotions in your chemical world. So,
No, not really.
yeah,
No.
yeah, they probably get in the way actually. So, titles. Do you find them challenging, and where do they fall? Start during the story or after it's all done?
No, I don't find them challenging. I see that comes in two parts. I always get a working title, which is
Okay.
more for me to be reminded of the key element of the story that needs to be presented.
Sure.
And then afterwards, I go back and give it a new title that might be more clickbaitish or matching the theme of wherever it's going.
Yep.
But I separate it out. I don't try to I try to do it in two steps.
Okay. Have you written a story because you came up with a title ever?
No, but I admit I have a couple in the like to be written um, file folder that I have a couple there. So
Yeah,
mhm.
I have actually. That's why I asked that. Come up with a
Okay.
whole story because I come up with a cool couple words as a title, and I'm like, that's the
Cool.
title. Now what's the
Yeah.
story? Boom.
Sure.
Yeah. Doesn't mean they go anywhere, but at least I have them. So when you're working on a project, what's your timeline like from initial idea, if you have any research, to a couple drafts, just one and done? When do you call
Mhm.
it done and are ready to submit it?
Yeah, I've again balancing other things in life.
Hmm.
It takes me about 3 months to get a short story of say 5 to 7,000 words typically,
Okay.
going from idea to getting it to the point I think it feels good to submit. So um, so if I work hard for a year, I might be able to crank out 4 short stories. That's actually quite intense, but
Hmm.
that's kind of for me anyway. But that's kind of at the pace I've been going.
Okay. How about your
Uh,
novels? What did they take?
yeah, so I'm just about to switch gears into that. So I started writing first independently publishing 3 books in my creative fiction world, and then around 2017, for a variety of reasons, I wanted to explore short story fiction writing. I wanted to explore working with other artists, and learning from them and building my community. And so uh, I switched into submitting stories for anthologies.
Okay.
And I think I maybe have like 20 stories now since then over the years. And
Nice.
I started off, like, especially with Perseid Press, I had 8 stories with Janet Morse's Perseid Press. And then, um, anyway, some of those took me away from writing what I wanted to with my my muse of alchemy and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've kind of switched back to that. I'm kind of focusing, and I have been focusing the last several years on writing short story fiction on that are with my characters in the
Right.
dysphagia fiction world. And to the point, um, I have a fair number of those, and I've been doing my best to design those like episodes in a bigger story
Mm-hmm.
arc.
Okay.
And I guess near the end we talk about where that might be going. But I have a critical mass now to put together a novel, which is mostly uh, the stories I've written for that.
Okay.
So,
All right.
hey,
Since
long
I
story short, I actually haven't written a novel in a long time, but I'm
so there's
working my
yeah,
way back to it. Yeah.
but you're writing in that world. You're writing in a even though it's a fantastical world of what you do. You're. I mean, I sort of picture when you're writing. You're that. What was that show? That movie with that little spaceship that went in the veins in the human body, uh, like a raft.
Oh God, yes. Well, yeah, I'm thinking of the Magic School Bus, but that's not it. But they had a similar
Inner
episode.
something.
Yeah,
Uh,
inner space. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Makes me think of that. You're cruising through all your bodily humors. Okay, so when you're all done writing your day, and I know you said you squeeze it in the evening, are you exhausted and just want a hot bath and a good drink, or are you actually pumped up and ready to rumble?
Yeah, so the I'm usually ready to rumble when I'm not doing the editing phase, like doing
Yeah,
the more fun draft part. I'm
sure.
pretty more pumped and creative, and then yeah, the energy gets tapped out of me when I get to do the refinements and realize that it needs work and it's less creative, but it's necessary. Yeah,
That's
so
true.
yeah, so I start off pumped and then I switch into bath mode.
Exactly. So would you live in this world or any of the worlds you've created?
Oh yeah, I love it, but I mean it'd probably be a bit terrifying, but yeah, I, I I would love to. I mean, most of the worlds I try to. I mean, they're kind of the medieval fantasy esque, you know, you know, maybe mixed in with things like Silent Hill, ghost, a very ghostly world, and yeah, I find that strangely calming.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if I invited you to my writing workshop and said you have 30 seconds to give one piece of advice, what would it be to other
30
writers?
seconds?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say pretty shortly. I would say to to get involved. So not focus on the writing per se. So all the other stuff that comes with it that you can do to become a writer and be a writer. Anywhere from doing, because to write you have to read. So you got to read, doing some book reviews and sharing them, um, participating in podcasts, participating in conventions, while they're volunteering, trying to get on panels, um, uh, also moderating or being part of, I guess, some type of social media, even though that's kind of changed over the years. But there's been anywhere from Discord to Goodreads.
Right.
So I think the writing is a very solitary type of thing, which is cool. But to get that done, it pays, even as an introvert, it pays to be part of this larger, to think of everything else that's not writing. So I think it really pays to build up a community of sorts.
Okay.
You'll learn opportunities. You'll get better craft. Your craft will get better when you
Right.
interact with people. But it will take you away from some of the writing. But I think it's still, for most people, to be a writer, you're really not just trying to complete something, written paper. You're going through a journey trying to express some type of emotions to connect with people, and to do that, you need to do some stuff in addition to the writing or something that complements that writing. And
Right.
so yeah, get involved.
Yep. And I would imagine, I mean, a lot of people have written without interacting a whole lot, but at the same time, you're going to gain. People notice different things, react to different things, react in different ways than you. So you need to witness some of that.
Yep.
What is the most difficult thing you have ever written?
I would say it was the first thing I wrote for Janet Morris's. Um,
Oh,
it was Pirates in Hell. Actually, it was the first thing I wrote for her. So
all right.
Pirates in Hell. So people, this is part of our Heroes in Hell series, which kind of came out of Thieves World, and then way back when she kind of took over the Heroes in Hell extension of that. Yeah, so I got to know Janet indirectly by doing book reviews of her books and other authors she was working with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started an interview series with which ended is on Blackgate now on people trying to work with weird expressive beauty and weird fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me into to learn about this opportunity that she had for the Heroes in Hell. So it was hard for me because it's a shared world, which wasn't mine, and I wanted to make an impression, which meant with limited time, I had to go back and read and learn
Sure.
what the rules of that world, which are pretty funky. They're pretty cool, but in short, it's I think they call it like Bangsian fantasy, which I don't think anyone really knows what that uses that term, but it's pretty much people that are deceased, famous people that are deceased, and they're kind of living their lives more or less. But you can mix people up from different centuries because time doesn't really exist anymore.
Right.
And there's a lot of satire. There's probably much more satire than horror,
Okay.
despite the term hell. Yeah. And so I was like, I needed to learn everything about that, and I had to pick some characters that I could match the theme.
Right.
Which was like, what am I going to do with this? And so there was a couple. What people typically do or did for that series was they would kind of take ownership over a few characters. So I took no one had Howard Carter, the famous Egyptian, you call it tomb raider, or you could call him, explorer, depending. And then Ernst Haeckel, who's a famous scientist. I might talk more about him, but
Okay.
he's an artist scientist. He was a contemporary of Charles Darwin. It was
Okay.
uh, he he uh, he was famous because he was an awesome artist. His stuff's everywhere. You would recognize it, but you wouldn't know it if you did. But he um, he really liked this idea that all like embryos for animals and man and all animals would kind of be express or have a record of every other animal they came from, like from their evolutionary perspective. So
Okay.
if we came from chimpanzees or something, then our embryos would match that before they came into us. So
Huh.
he liked that idea so much, he drew these cool graphs and found all these embryos, and some of them he drew really well, and some he was missing, and he wanted to kind of push his idea, so he just kind of ad libbed. But
Okay.
he kind of, but that wasn't what you should do, obviously, and so that really that's why he ended up in hell. But
Okay. Okay. I've read
um,
like two of the early ones in that series, and I have a stack of them here. But whew, that would be challenging to write in.
it was I like how it came out, but it was I mean, the pirates I chose was called the Sea Peoples, which were like a generic. I don't think they're even well known, but they were around the time of Egyptians were I think probably come from the Turkey area, but
Okay.
they raided the Egyptian shores, and so those were the pirates I had.
Okay.
But for me, I was like I had to write about a scientist and an artist, so I picked Tekel, and I had to get pirates in with some cool alchemy. So the alchemy came, I got Howard Carter bringing the alchemy in from Egypt, and I had the Sea Peoples was the pirates at the time, according to history. So I had to learn history too. Uh, that was really hard to do, but that worked out, and I got um, I think 6 in that series, and I got the 2 in Heroica that were from that. But that was
So it's definitely worthy then, worth doing. Yeah.
it was, but it pushed me a bit.
Yeah. That's a cool story. I'm just checking
Yeah,
the time and how we're doing. All right. So we
yeah.
hit 25 minutes and we're at question 15 now.
Okay,
All right. Ready? This is a new one. These are
okay,
sporting choices. There's three of them. I'm going to give you an either or. Pick which one you would do.
okay.
Swimming pool or shooting pool?
Swing.
All right. Tennis court or basketball court?
Basketball.
And driving range or target range?
Uh, uh, the latter, the target range.
Target range. All right. Do you have a favorite quote and will you share it?
I will, but it's kind of long. I will share it. So I have it on the screen, so I don't get it all because I don't have a memory for all this. But it's the opening to the Call of Cthulhu from H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay.
Um, this is not an inspirational quote, which people might provide, but meant a lot to me. This was one of the first times I got exposed to H.P. Lovecraft. So the opening goes as the most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all of its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but someday the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and our frightful position therein that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the light into peace and safety of a new dark age.
That's a
And it's
lot
a
to
lot to
take
take in.
in.
It is. It's a lot to take in, and it's probably easy to read, you know, as an individual than to listen to me try to read it.
Well, I'll have it up on the screen here, so it'll end up filling the
Okay.
screen and they'll be able to
Yeah.
follow along.
I think even the first sentence is powerful. I think it's the most wonderful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all of its contents.
Yeah,
And,
good point.
just again, as a scientist, and I was reading. I think that this really taps into I think why I write is to try to piece together things that we can't actually
Okay.
study well. Yeah.
That's good motivation. All right. Can you? I don't remember if in the email you sent me the full quote, but can you make sure you send me that so I have it exactly the
Oh
way
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
it? Yeah. All right.
Yep. Yep.
All right. This is a fun one. Just 10 first thoughts. I'm going to throw out a single word, and I want to know your first reaction.
Okay.
Eels.
Electricity.
Mediocre.
I have issues. Me.
Pantheon.
Beautiful.
Anger.
Calm.
Delivery.
Late.
Recess.
Oh. Fun.
Feline.
It's boring. A lion.
That's
Yeah.
fine. Mask.
Oh, mask. I think of a death mask.
Okay. Speech.
It's difficult.
And one just for you. Beaker.
Oh, the potential.
Oh, I like it. I wasn't sure if I'd get a Muppet. All right. Do you read nonfiction? And if so, what do you like reading? And will you share a title or two?
I do, though it's kind of weird stuff. And usually it's with me trying to study this alchemy and other stuff. So, like for instance, with Ernst Haeckel, I mentioned, who he not only was an artist and scientist, but around like 1900 he wrote this book called The Riddle of the Universe. This is actually an early
Okay.
copy.
All right.
So um, yeah, so there's a lot of old science books I like to hunt down because a lot of the more you go back into history, the scientists and artists were kind of the same, and oftentimes they were trying to unveil more about like things they couldn't find, like the soul and the spirit. And, like
Okay.
like Da Vinci used to cut up bodies looking for stuff like this and drawing
Right.
and I love reading the notes from the older scientists as they kind of were going for the spiritual stuff that they couldn't find. Um, but it's usually hard to read. And there's some similar stuff which I don't. No one can actually read this one. This is the Voynich manuscript. Have you heard about
Okay.
this one?
I have heard that word before. I couldn't tell you about it
Yeah, I
though.
think it's more of a guy's name, but this is a not the real copy, obviously, but the it was the main manuscript was made in the 15th century, I think within 50 years of Da Vinci. But it's chock full of some really weird shit, basically, if I'm allowed to say that in your podcast.
Yeah.
And some of it's just a bunch of like foliage and herbal things. The key thing is that it was written in a code, and there's this beautiful cryptic, mystic, elements of like pregnant women and ferns mixed together, and there's all this text throughout trying to explain it, and it's huge. But no one can understand. No one's cracked the code yet. And the
Huh.
people have been trying to crack the code for many years now,
Yeah.
and no one knows what it means still. When you think that as far as long as we have come as scientists and stuff, we can figure out most stuff. And
Right.
um, yeah. So anyway, so the nonfiction, I can't read that because no one can, but it's indicative of things I would like to read.
Fascinating to look through, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That totally matches what your motivations in writing the
It's,
world is. So that's cool.
yeah.
So accompanying that, is there a visual artist whose work moves you? One or two or three?
Yeah, I got a bunch.
Okay.
I'll try to be. I mean, there's the
You got time.
I mentioned Heckle before, right? Ernst Haeckel. So
Yep.
he has this thing called the art forms in nature. Is really popular.
Okay.
I mean, he drew this stuff like over 100 years ago. People put this stuff like decorative, on their walls and stuff, but it's all scientific. I mean, it's biological, art. But he took the art and he wanted to make it look like really,
Yeah.
nice to look at, right? And so I
Wallpaper
love
in the
that.
kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some other ones. I mean, there's I got a bunch. I got a ton of art books, but I love like Alan Lee and Brian Froud. People who've done a lot of
Alan
I mean,
Lee
Brian Froud
and
was the key artist for the Dark Crystal,
okay.
and Alan Lee is one of the key artists that has drawn a lot of Tolkien's work.
Okay.
Um, there's Gustav Doré, which I know Jason Ray Carney mentioned him. I love his etchings. Um, and there's a I should speak of someone who's alive because that's probably a good idea. So one guy who moves me a lot, and um, I think do you still close like with the three C's?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So I'll have more than him, but so Bastien Lecoy de Harma, oh, he's French. So
A
this
little
is
bring it over a little bit. There you go.
um, this is his
Okay.
art book, but he's
Okay.
a he does a lot of fantasy covers and Magic the Gathering.
Oh, I've
Um,
seen his name in writing before.
yeah, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name correct, but
Okay.
obviously my English is bad, my French is worse. But he kind of specializes in this kind of gothic, um, you know, seductive type of. He has some men, but it's usually women, and they usually have weapons, and there's just a ton of emotion that radiates out of all of his stuff.
Okay.
So
It vaguely
uh,
looks like Brahma a little bit too.
it does, yeah, uh, yeah.
All right. I followed your articles, those interviews you did on Blackgate on the creativity in dark art, basically.
Mhm.
They've been fascinating to read. Phil Emery's that was cool too.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
so your interests, your science background, your own writing, these artists. How do you give depth to a character, and do you treat secondary and third level characters different than a primary?
Yeah, so the depth I give to the primary characters, I try to find out, something that means a lot to them. Um, Try to figure out why they want it. Might be a quest they're on, or a goal. Like Dr. Gray is one of my favorite characters. He's always trying to preserve a family or create a family of his own. Um, and then I like to take that away from them. Not to be mean, but I think you need to you have to challenge your characters. So for the primary characters, they have to really have a really strong motivation to want something, preserve something, have something, and then I think my job as a writer is to make sure they don't get it, um, but or they yes.
You got
So
to work for it.
for secondary characters, I don't know, they just kind of emerge along the way. But it is interesting about them where I pay them less tension, I think they usually begin as a tool to help the primary character, but that once I get a chance to write with them a few times, they often emerge, into their own.
Okay.
When I learn about them. Um,
Has one ever become strong enough to move up to a primary level?
yeah, actually, I've had a few of these. So I started off my Lords of Disgracia stuff. My first character was this really passive guy named he was a seer, like a fortune teller named Day, and he was super passive. Actually, no, I don't know. He could see a lot, but he was such a poor action character. Anyway, then he got involved with my other main action character named Mortal Isis, who's like this skeletal warrior dude. Um, and he kind of took over most of my writing for a long time. Uh, and that what I realized over time actually was one of his viziers or confidants, this alchemist, Dr. Gray, was really more of a sorcerer that
Okay.
has his own motivation, especially around this family, preserving family or helping someone else's family.
Right.
So that's become my focus recently. So yeah, definitely. I think part of it is as I learn more about myself, I kind of change, a character that better might explore that better.
Okay. Makes
So
sense.
personally, I get more excited by looking back. Like I'm really excited about these Dr. Graves tales I've been putting together because I've been exploring him, trying to. He's a necromancer golem type guy, trying to. He's not a human, but he's trying to make his own family because he's
Right. A
pretty much
father.
failed at preserving everyone else's family, and now he wants to create his own. Oh, and I have a lot of thoughts about family structure and maintaining that,
Okay.
so at the moment he's kind of my favorite. I'm really excited about. Plus, he's kind of fun to listen to, but I think looking or read about, I guess. But he definitely was a secondary character that grew as my own thoughts grew as I learned more and what I thought breeders might like.
That's actually pretty cool because I believe most of the stories I've read have featured him. So to
Yeah.
learn that he didn't start out so prominent, but that leads right into the next question: which one of your own characters would you like to have as a close companion?
Yeah, that's funny though. I wouldn't pick him because I'm wondering. I mean, I'd probably pick a companion to help me. It would be this Lord Lysis character is more of
Okay.
this
All right.
bold action guy. I mean, not quite like Conan, but more like more much more assertive than me, and uh, that's the type of support I would like going through any challenge. Yeah.
Okay, so from a distance, I gotta say, you being willing to stand up at Gen Con and run so many functions and panels and organize seems pretty assertive to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm mixed. I don't know. This is an artist thing, I don't know if you feel this too. I guess maybe people listening, but it's like artists, we often feel it's a solitary thing for a lot of us. We want to create something. We're driven for God knows something. We want to create something, but we often don't want to be on center stage either.
Yeah,
So I it's and it's weird sometimes even to share stuff you create because
true.
we get feedback, and then also you don't know if you want other people to know. And there's this whole like, you want to create, but you don't want people to know about it. And that there's got to be a name for this type of tension or paradox. I'm not. It's kind of like the imposter syndrome, but I have a lot of that.
Okay, understood.
Yeah,
But you sure
yeah,
fight through it, and you do a lot.
I do, and behind the scenes, I just increase my anxiety a lot, but. Well, it's worth it, I guess, is what I find those things. It's worth it I get a lot of value from doing things like trying to, like chairing Gen Con, being on the panels and
Good.
stuff.
Okay.
It's useful, but yeah, man, I get really stressed
The week
doing
after,
that.
you're probably exhausted
Oh, totally.
emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, can you was it one of the covers of your books? Didn't it have Lord however you say his name on the front?
Lord bless us.
Yep.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
one which
Yep.
one was that?
That was the first one. I drew that one. That was
Okay.
this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. All right, cool.
But I commissioned Ken Kelly to do the second one, and the third one Dan Landerman. And then I commissioned Bastian Lecoif de Harma for this collection of Graves Tales, and
Okay.
I'll show you that in a moment. I
Okay.
got that behind me.
We're almost
Yeah,
there. So who writes
yeah.
the characters you like reading most?
Oh yeah, I got two that I could suggest right now that I'm reading. One, CSE Cooney. I'm reading her Saint Death's
Awesome.
Daughter
Yep.
series.
Yep.
Really enjoying that. Weird, dark comedy, almost young adult stuff, but it can't be. I don't know. It's but the characters in it are really. It's fun.
Good.
Tons of great motivation and behavior. The other one I could talk much longer about. We probably don't have time.
She'll be
Is
on the show, by the way, just so you know.
Should be where? Sorry.
She'll be on the
Oh,
show.
cool.
Yep,
Oh,
Claire will be
Claire. Oh,
doing this.
great.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. The other one I mentioned is Howard Andrew Jones' Hanuvar series.
Okay.
Um, Howard's he's the best. He had a five book contract with Bang for the Hanuvar series,
Yep.
and real short about that. I mean, he modeled his hero after more or less after Hannibal of Carthage, the general. But he did this neat thing, which is almost classic Howard because he's such a good guy. Is that his main character is gets his empire taken away from him, and instead of being motivated by vengeance or trying to repair his kingdom per se, he manages to survive the fall of the kingdom or his empire or whatever he had. And the whole series is really about him trying to go out and rescue people and preserve, um, key friends and family that have been dispersed.
Yep.
So he managed. It's cool. He has this like major character who's a veteran, so he comes in with all this forward momentum and stuff. Like he already knows how to fight. He knows all this stuff, but then he's also everyone knows who he is. So he's got to hide, and
Yep.
so he's super skilled. The action starts off really quick, even though these are novel length books. But he's not like a mean, immoral guy. He's if you know Howard Andrew Jones, he's
Yep.
a sweet guy, and yeah, it might be. It's like so anyway. I love that kind of the sword and sorcery character, but that has some depth. And it's hard to get a sword and sorcery character that works, in a novel form.
Right.
And he did it with Hanuvar.
And in such a unique persona too.
Yeah, yeah. So I hope I don't think he's going to be able to complete this series given his health right now. So he's fighting brain cancer, which is turning a lot of us up. God,
Yep.
there's a GoFundMe available. Maybe I can, if it's appropriate, we could share that link.
Yep. Yep.
He's more power to Howard. He's been such a strong force in the community of sword and sorcery for
Right. Yep.
a long
And
time. But yeah, I love his Hanover character, and
it is a
I
beautiful
think
character. Yep.
cool hero who fights for, but isn't just he's doing it for a good cause.
True. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. I hear that.
yeah,
So, if you could write anyone else's character from any medium, would you, and who would it be?
yeah. I'd like to do some pastiche or something with H.P. Lovecraft's Richard. Is it Alan Pickman? Upton Pickman. It's from Pickman's model. Uh,
Okay.
so Pickman's model is my favorite short story from H.P. Lovecraft,
Okay.
and the artist in that uh, is Richard Upton Pickman.
Okay.
Is his name. Uh, he's not featured in the story per se, but the stuff he would paint is.
So the combo of the story and the painting
Mhm.
is what intrigues you to write more in that world, in that character.
Yeah, I mean, there's a slight. I mean, I don't know, there's a slight. It's a short story, but I mean, there's a key thing where there's this artist in the Boston area who's painting these really grotesque things that
Yeah.
people think are fake, and they turn out to be real, and a gateway, if you will, into much other places, and which is you can kind of expect that being in the Lovecraft thing, but it's there's a lot there from the artist and then what the artist subject.
Yep. I
There's a lot
remember
to
that
explore there.
story.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. That's cool. Last question. Are you trying to share anything in your writing, in your storytelling?
My main goal in the storytelling is I guess maybe it's twofold. I really, if anyone reading it, I want them to feel like WTF. I want them to go, this is something different and weird and new. Um, if they don't feel that, I feel like I failed. I feel like for myself and for the reader, they need to experience something that's just really bizarre.
Okay.
Um, I don't know why. It's something I've imposed on myself. But so I guess I'm trying to share. I want to share really weird experiences,
Yeah,
and it is tough for me in a sense because the more weird things get, I think almost by definition they become less accessible
yeah,
because
true.
they're weird. And it's one of the things I kind of am pursuing with these interviews on Black 8 and also when I write is how to balance this. I want people to experience weird things. I want to experience weird things and learn about them, but it can be a challenge making them readable and accessible and memorable because of that too. So that's my challenge.
That's a good self-analysis, but I like that, and it gives you something to feed all that writing. So,
Yep.
all right, that is the end of our questions, and we hit 46 minutes.
Okay.
So
Whew.
I'm attributing that to the new format, the change of questions. We built some long answers right in a row, so it gets a little going. But I like it. Those were some good answers, Seth. So this is now your chance to talk about something cold that you'd like us to know a little bit more about, something current, and if you can give us a little hint of what's coming in your writing life.
Yeah, so the thing I'll say is Cold is the thing that started it all. So the Swords of Discouragement.
Okay.
Actually, if someone wanted to start the series, I would suggest they pick the second one in that series. It's called Hell and the Demons. But anyway, it's kind of cool. It got me started. I enjoy it a lot, but it's I think came out 2011 or so. So at and yeah, so
Okay.
more or less, it's all about that alchemical sorcery, blood sorcery, that sort of thing. Um, the thing that's I guess current is the last thing I had published. I had a story and a half. I have a in Monsters in Hell, which is the Perseid Press series that came out last May.
All right.
I've stored my own. I've won a collaboration with Joe Bonadonna. Actually,
Cool.
he's a great guy too. He wrote most of that story. He wrote about 2/3 to 70% of that other one, but I helped collaborate to build on it a bit. But this is much more satirical goofiness, of but the theme is monsters in hell.
Give
The
me a
next one
hint.
is
Give me a hint.
yeah.
What monster did you go with?
Oh yeah, well, I had well there I always do Egyptian based monsters, and so I have yes some of the Egyptian gods I
Okay.
pose as monsters.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I like
yeah,
that kind of stuff. So.
yeah. It's funny because actually it's interesting the satirical thing. I am kind of a smartass in real life, which I don't put in my own fiction, my disgracious stuff. But it's nice to find an outlet for that.
Okay. Cool.
The last one is a thing I've been working on for years now. So is I mentioned how I've kind of been focused on Dr. Gray, my and his like desire to build a family of his own. So a lot of the short stories I've been writing over the last 5 years or so have been chapters in him trying to create three daughters and raise them. Um, and of course, the daughters don't get along and they don't want to kill each other, But the, I have a story arc of him creating three uh, daughters, golems carved in the shape of humans, and then the stories are all about them, the three daughters misbehaving basically or not getting along as they try to start their own families. So there's a story arc of creating the family, and then it goes through the three daughters trying to create their families. And so that should be out about a year. I'm to the point of trying to wait to get the rights back from some of the stories I
Okay.
published, and then having some fun like commissioning authors. So I have and it's some interior art from Samuel Dillon. He's a great guy. He drew some. I got a story into Tales from Wizards and Skull, and he drew one of the.
Okay. That's why I know the name. Okay.
And I'll just I don't know if it's showing up with the glare or not, but
There you
this is
go.
a this
That's
is a Dr. Gray showing up with his daughters. I can send you the picture.
okay.
The interior shot. The three daughters are in a cauldron of blood underneath. Um, and then for the cover, I had it on my website. I haven't shared broadly, so this is I contacted Bastion to paint the three women,
Oh wow. Okay.
and this captures all their personalities
Cool.
really well. And so I'm going to open with Samuel Dillon's drawing of the three-year-old being carved and born. This will be the cover, but really, again, by the end of the collection of tales. The women are all older and trying to again
That's
create
a
their own families and actually kill each other basically. Yeah, because
that's a beautiful cover.
yeah, it was great working with him. And then um, it, yeah, I mean the stories are chock full of stuff that he draws really so noir, gothic,
Yeah, seems to
pseudo
yeah
seductive women,
fit his.
and
Yep,
yep. So that
very
was
cool.
kind of a reveal. Yep.
A little bit.
It should be out. It's probably gonna take about a year. I mean, given everything, but it'll
Okay.
get out there sometime.
All right. Well, whatever you're willing to share, I will include if you send that art, or if you want to keep it secret, or still for a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
I just made up a word. So
Yeah.
we're doing spectacular here, but I want to say thank you very, very much for spending this hour with, or under an hour with 24 and 42, and letting us get to know your heart and everything.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome. Opportunity is great.
My thanks to my friend Seth for all of whom he is and all of himself, his life, and his universe he shared with us today. We learned quite a bit from Seth's encouragement to get involved, his love for the weird, his heart for Howard Andrew Jones, and his awesome cover art for his pending Dr. Graves novel. Please seek out Seth's work, read it, share it. Until next time, this was 24 in 42.